Good morning, everyone. Quite a lot of very familiar faces this morning. It's fine for me if you just drop in the chat box. Where are you from? Are you in TA or are you in a different modality? And I will still admit different people who are coming in. And I don't have another assistant today, so I will be trying to do the breakout rooms and look at the messages and catering for you all. So if there is an important message, please just raise your hand and I have a look if you don't want to talk. The whole meeting is recorded, but the breakout rooms will not be recorded. And I will have some breakout rooms for people who like to chat. You don't have to go in. So if I allocate you to a breakout room and you don't want to go, just please don't accept and just come back to the main room. And I also prepared some exercises to write. So if you have a pen and a paper or you want to type on the laptop or iPad, you feel free. But I want you to go through today with your own stuff. So I just have a look if anyone else is waiting at all. Let's see. We have quite a big group today. It looks like everyone is in at the moment. And I'm very grateful for that. So let's have a look. I quickly share my screen. I prepared some slides because I think sitting here for 2 hours would be pretty boring without slides. And I put some graphics in it. I quite enjoyed creating those. I hope you will enjoy it with me. So let's share. There we go. And I also might need to put some wood on my fire as well at some point if it starts dying down. It's still a little bit cold. Spring is coming, but it's still a little bit cold. So I'm Nia Clark. I'm based in the UK in Leeds, and I'm presenting around the world in different countries, different places, a lot. I have a lot of conferences in the UK this year as well, and a couple of them abroad as well. I have my own training program to work with ADHD clients, or if you want to switch to ADHD coaching, an ADHD coaching program is coming out soon in May, and a psychotherapy program will be coming out in September, which will be accredited with an institute as well. So if you want to specialize working with ADHD clients, whether it's in psychotherapy or counseling, or whether it's in coaching, just contact me and link up. You can find me on Facebook, you can find me on LinkedIn, or you can directly email me at niaclark.com. It's just my name. So let's go through quickly the ethics here. We want to hold okay position today. Make sure we are okay in our space. And obviously, whatever we talk about in the space, I will share quite a lot. So keep it confidential as much as possible. If you are talking in the main group, just please be aware that these events are recorded, and quite often they put it on YouTube. So don't share anything what you don't want others to hear or watch later on. Whatever happens in the breakout room stays in the breakout room. That's not recorded. Make sure we are bearing in mind the inclusion and differences and holding adult ego state in the meantime. I have this twice because I wanted to really, really emphasize that. So if we can flick into child and back and forward, because we will be contacting some of those messages which we are holding in child ego state, and some of the messages what's coming from a critical parent as well. I'm inviting your openness and wisdom, and make sure you take responsibility for your transferential counter-transferential responses here. If we're putting someone on someone else's face, just make sure we can hold back and check your assumptions before you speak or before you talk. It's always useful to have an open mind and a very empty canvas. And I will talk about this later. Why do we do this? Before we get into anything else, I just want to make sure all of you are comfortable, all of you are warm. Do you have a nice little cup of tea like myself in here? Yeah? Because today will be about looking after yourselves, loving yourselves, caring for yourselves. So we will do this in multiple levels. When we feel our joints, when we look after ourselves through our environment, and we need to do a lot of thinking, because with this topic, when we're talking about neurodiversity and neuro-informed TA, it's still a lot of learning involved. So it will be a lot of psychoeducation besides of the experiential things. So I'm a supervisor and a mentor for those who are doing ADHD coaching. I do a lot of mentoring for them, a trainer, and I also work in ADHD coaching and psychotherapy as well. So I support trainees and practitioners, trainees to go towards their diploma or CTA journey, or writing their essays, or fitting in the group, wherever they are, or practitioners to get their business from A to B, to succeed, to have enough clients, to find their specialization, to make sure they thrive and understand where they are going. And I work with a lot of ADHD clients, or a lot of ADHD or neurodivergent practitioners. At the moment, my research topic is on our ADHD, so I want to really understand how the combined kind of mind works. And I have multiple clients who I'm working with and doing my research, and I'm fascinated by how they work. I'm an ADHDer myself. I don't really have autism in me. I have nice little dyslexia and ADHD together. And that sometimes comes back in speech, or comes back on my errors in my books or in my presentations. I own it. So all of this ADHD work comes from experience. I wrote 3 books on these topics, and I aimed these 3 books for the colleagues who I'm working with, and mainly because colleagues asked for it. The first book I wrote in 2024, Travel into the ADHD Minds. It's a strategic book. I created a treatment plan, a treatment pyramid, working with neurodiversity and ADHD. The second book was on ADHD coaching, because then coaches started to ask, so how do we implement this in coaching, and how do we work with this differently in coaching? And then the third book is a workbook. So when you open the third book, it's a lot of questionnaires, it's a lot of forms. You can just take it to your clients and put it on your lap and work from this in there. If you want to have a look at them, you can read into them. They are all on Amazon, and you can check the tables and the titles and different things right in the beginning. These books are a lot of work. A book is about 500 hours. So a lot of research, and a lot of writing, and a lot of check with others, and questions. How do they understand what I want to put out there? And when I'm rereading them, I still feel like I failed, because there are so many ways I could have said it better. But I hope if some of you are reading it, will find it useful and helpful for your work. So that's the treatment pyramid. And today's work will be mainly about this layer 9, when we're clearing the intrapsychic dialogue, and we're working with the inner critic, and we're learning to love ourselves. It's very rare when we're talking about it. In this layer 9, we really need to weave together the neuro-informed type of work with the trauma-informed type of work. And we will be talking about this today at some point. How do we think about it? Are we able to separate it? Are we able to be aware of it? What's going on in our minds when we are thinking about ourselves and loving ourselves? What's going in our minds when we are working with our clients? So when I pop this together, what is our story? What is our topic today? Is we will start with a little bit of story, what I will tell about myself and my daughter, and I tell you how are my bad days going and what's happening in my brain when I'm criticizing myself, and then we reflect on this a little bit. Why do we experience this, and where is all coming from? Then we talk about some principles. Then we think about our neuro inner talk, what's happening in there, and then we move on to what's the difference between ADHD and autistic. I didn't bring all the different range of neurodiversity in there because it's just so much to deal with. So today we will be focusing on somewhat separating ADHD and autism, as well as the neuro-informed work and the trauma-informed work. And then how can you look into yourselves and find this? Or how can you bring it to your clients and find this? And once we explored what's happening inside either of ourselves or in our clients, what kind of inner critic is going on in there, then we learn about the process, how to make friends with ourselves. And what I would like by the end of this workshop, then you make friends with yourselves and you go away as your best friend, developing a new, very compassionate way of thinking about yourselves. So my story, I have a daughter who is nearly 18. We just been in the Yorkshire lavender fields during summertime, and it was terribly windy. So we took this picture, and I was feeling quite funny. I have a very sensitive nervous system, so I cannot have coffee. Everything really impacts me. I cannot drink alcohol, all sorts of different things. And we were sitting middle of the lavender. Lavender has a very strong impact on the nervous system. It makes you relaxed. So smelling all this lavender for a good 10 minutes, I was very happy. I was very chilled and very relaxed. And my daughter was saying, Mom, did you smoke something? I never smoked anything in my life because my nervous system cannot take it. I told her, I don't know. I just don't want to deal with anything right now. I don't want to be responsible for anything. I'm feeling very chilled. So we had a nice cup of tea. They have some lavender tea in the coffee shop and some nice tea cakes and things. And it was a really lovely time. She is my reason why I started all this research about neurodiversity and ADHD, because we discovered she had ADHD, and rather than the dyslexia being the biggest issue, ADHD was a much bigger issue for her. And I wanted to know what to do with this. And then I also realized I have quite a lot of clients who are coming with ADHD, mostly undiagnosed, and I didn't know how to work with them either. So I started to develop a methodology, how to work with these things. And we started to regulate at home. We started to learn managing it. And then in the research, I discovered, oh yeah, I have ADHD as well. I have those traits. I'm a combined type. Quite a lot of hyperactivity is happening from the outside. So I interrupt other people's words. I cannot wait in a queue. I swear when I drive a car. I have lots of thoughts all the time, lots of ideas. I finish things. Very rarely I sort of start, and then the finishing comes quite late in the line. When I work, I have 5-6 windows open and I'm jumping between projects. I'm doing a little bit of email, and then I'm writing a little bit of article, and then I'm writing a little bit of presentation, and then I might be even writing a little bit of notes, or I do some invoicing. So it's all happening at the same time. And for my brain, this is quite comfortable. But if I'm really tired, then I might make errors. So the attention to detail or error making or recognizing if I made an error is not really there. And I'm quite happy to sit with autistic colleagues who have the very strong eye to the detail and very solid questions, which takes my very creative and excitable brain down to earth, having questions to me and asking me, all right, so what about this? And what about that? And how can we manage this? Or how can we manage that? My life is busy. It's filled and speeded up. So my pace of life is very fast compared to some other colleagues, which also brings the question, so am I a right therapist? Am I a right person? Because therapists are supposed to be zen. They're supposed to be slow. They're supposed to speak slow, not fast like I do. They're supposed to have a very, very quiet and introverted type of life, maybe. I'm not sure. That's what I thought when I went into this profession. I had 20 years in corporate before that. And I discovered by thinking who my clients are and who are coming to me and what kind of trainings do I hold. I thought, well, that's what they want. They want this energy. And then I have some other clients who are coming and they really don't want my energy. It's too much. It's too much to hold. It's too much to handle. I'm not going into detail enough. I'm not going into depth enough. And in other ways, I'm going to very deep and I'm going into very other different details. So we need to find our pacing. We need to find what's matching. We need to find who I am and who is the other, who I'm working with, who I'm co-creating a therapeutic relationship, a coaching relationship with, a collegial relationship with, and own it and be comfortable in it. So my first point today to loving ourselves, when I'm thinking about loving our professional selves, who are you as a professional? Who are you sitting here with all of your traits as you are, the ways how you are? Is it acceptable? Is it okay? So I just want you to hold this thought. Don't do anything with it just yet. I'm just dropping it up in the air. We will have lots of little clouds floating by the end of this presentation. And we have good days and bad days. Yeah, on a good day, last time I was procrastinating, and in the procrastination, I finished my book. That was my procrastination because I had to do something more annoying, marketing or whatever, which I don't particularly like. And instead of doing marketing, I just did what I knew how to finish a book. That was about my first book. And on a good day, I might write about 10,000 words, or I might write, put up about 20 different ideas on Facebook or LinkedIn, or write multiple articles and then schedule them. On a good day, I'm extremely productive because with ADHD, we do that. On a bad day, I might stay in pajamas and I eat mashed potato with applesauce. And my brain is like a sponge and I cannot think about anything. I do the minimum, the 2 loads of washing with my 2 daughters. We still have the pinks going on and some cooking and the cleaning. And then I might handle my clients who I love dearly. And it's always the core of my work to work with either with the coaching clients or the therapy clients or with my supervisors and mentees. But then I don't do anything extra. I don't want to even go outside. I just want to curve in and chill in and not do too much. And when I had these days in the past, I always asked, am I depressed? What's going on? I was really confused about myself because I thought I just need to be happy all the time. And I need to have all this high energy and I need to do the 10,000 words every day. It's impossible. No one does that. But with ADHD, we have the energy fluctuating up and down. With autism, we have an energy fluctuating again, but the autistic energy is much slower rate. The life pacing is much slower. So what a person can pack in a day or does pack in a day with ADHD will be much more always than what a person will pack in a day with autism. But the difference in work will be the quality. And autistic work will be mostly without errors. It will be mostly with very deep thinking and looking through. And ADHD work will be done together, but it needs revision and revision and revision because the depth and the detail might not be there. So it's not better and worse. It's just different. The pacing is different. The work is different, and how things are managed are different. So I want you to reflect for a moment on your good days and bad days. And I want you to think about the bad days. Are they acceptable? Are they coming from a depression or from trauma, or are they just simply part of your nervous system reset, part of your brain reset, part of how your energy level comes up and down? Yeah, we might, we are therapists, we are counselors, we are coaches. So we do analyze, we do reflect, don't we? And I do that. So on a bad day, we start to have these questions like, why am I like this? What's wrong with me? I'm not performing. And we look for the cause. And as we start to look for the cause, then we go down, 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 further down, and we end up in the basement about ourselves. We might even have lists of how many times we felt this way, how many times we didn't feel okay, and then we might made an error or a mistake with something. So let's have a discussion. I want you to go to the therapy, go to the breakout rooms, and then talk to each other about your good days and bad days. What are you saying to yourself on those bad days? What is your critical inner talk on those bad days? What is your narrative on your bad days? What is your intrapsychic process on those bad days? Let's have a quick chat about this. First of all, I want to ask, these were a larger type of breakout rooms. Was that okay? Was it too many people for you in there? So if we have another breakout room, I would have a feedback. How did you feel in this size? Do you want a smaller size?
I think I would prefer smaller because I'm not sure we had enough time. Yeah, that's personally me. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So next time I will go for a smaller one, 40-ish, something like that. So people have more chance to talk. Okay. A second question. Would you like a very quick break around midday to just refresh your drinks and have a bio break? And then we come back because we're finishing at about 1:10. Would that work for everyone? Okay.
Yeah.
It's just to making sure in the meantime we are looking after ourselves. So you feel all right? Yeah. And we're getting this all right. Okay. So just in a light way, in a not oversharing, but in a light way, what came up for you in the breakout rooms? What are you saying to yourselves? What is the narrative? What is the intrapsychic process? If anybody happy to talk. Gemma.
Hello. Yeah, I was saying that my inner critic is, and also I'm ADHD, by the way. My inner critic, since I was a young person, has been quite mean, I think.
Okay.
I think someone just mentioned critical parent, and that rings a bell for me as well. Feels very critical in that way. My dad was always very critical when I was a kid. So now I think my kind of process is to soothe that child in me as the adult that I am now, kind of with all the knowledge and that I have now. I am very much saying, you know, hang on a minute, think about this. Like you're not a weirdo. You're okay. And if people didn't like you, they wouldn't hang around with you. Like they wouldn't. So I think there's a lot of self-soothing from adult to my child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Thank you very much, Gemma. Anyone else? you can just talk in general about, rather than sharing too much about yourself if you don't want to, what did you realize in the breakout room, or what was the theme? Someone talked about productivity in the chat.
Yeah, it's just like most people seem to be saying when they didn't feel they were being productive enough, that's when the critical voices come in and say you should, all the shoulds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Towards the end, I'm hoping to have some little time left about imposter syndrome. So we will talk a little bit about imposter syndrome, because this will come into this category, what you just talked about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nia, will you also talk about procrastination?
Absolutely. I have a matrix.
Okay.
Yeah, I created a new matrix in the new book because I had a workshop, and then people were saying that's too academic, whatever you have in the previous book. So I made it simple, easy to access, easy to understand, and work around procrastination, mainly with ADHD. So that will be focusing on somewhat ADHD, but it's also applicable for our ADHD or autistic people as well.
Okay, thank you.
Some of the autistic procrastination reasons will probably not be in it, because there's quite a big difference in neurodiversity, even within different types of autism, quite a big difference. So we could go into this topic and I could talk about it for a week, but we only have 2 hours. So I stick with today's topic. How do we love ourselves? Despite of our neurodiversity, despite of our flaws, despite of everything else, what we have. So let's have a quick look. I just put some bubbles up about the cost of our critical inner voice, the deep self-criticism, and that quite often might be leads to vulnerability and depression. We always have the shame underneath. We have a chronic self-doubt. Yeah, it pops in on definitely on those low days when someone mentioned about the performance and the productivity. For some people, there's a strong self-hatred at times. It might just flicks in and out, but it might be much stronger than just disliking themselves. I'm working with some clients who has self-disgust because of their neurodiversity. Yeah, so these things can go very, very deep. We will just touch a little bit on shame towards the end today as well. Procrastination or avoidance. And then all of these can link into eroded confidence or lack of self-trust. So it's, if I'm learning about myself, I'm not finishing things. If I'm learning about myself, I'm totally hectic, and I will leave half of the stuff at home. I remember going away to a conference, I left my laptop charger, and I was the keynote for the conference. So I was running around on the day before the conference in the city to find a laptop charger. Yeah, I have an also very ADHD husband who once helped me to pack my suitcase, and he was responsible for my cables and didn't pack the European converters. And I had them all prepared very nicely. So in that city in Europe, I was running for the European converters. How can I plug my laptop in for a 3 days conference? So these bits and pieces can make us feel utterly an idiot and highly unprofessional and highly dysfunctional. So when we relate to ourselves with that lack of self-trust, then when we need to do a bigger project or we have a challenge, that really, really eats in us. I have a client quite often with autism or ADHD. People have issues with the gastro system, IBS, any kind of gastritis, lots of different things. And they lose trust in their body. And how do we heal that trust and develop that trust and help them to love their body again? And this is not about body dysmorphia. It's about how anxiety links with our organs and with our body and with our tissues and with our cells. My body cannot perform anymore. I need to put everything on hold. Yes, so lots of questions coming up in here, and we cannot go into details today, but just bear in mind how wide all of this eroded self-trust and eroded confidence can go. And that can block life. It can block aliveness, and it blocks self-worth. I'm not as worthy as others. I'm much lower, I'm much lesser, I'm less capable, I'm less productive, all sorts. So I want you to take out your pen. I will not ask you to show it to anyone. This is just for yourself. Highly confidential, just for yourself. Or you can take this into your journaling, into your self-reflection, whichever way you like to do it. But I want you to think about yourself. How do you think about yourself? And then what does your inner critic say? So I want you to recognize what this little devil on the shoulder is saying. And I'm not naming this as critical parent, because some of the critical parental messages are already interjected so deeply that they sit in the child ego state, and they became our beliefs. We completely inhabited them. So they became our beliefs during childhood. We live our life based on those principles, which originally came from the critical parental messages. And then we have, this is sitting in A1. We have the little P1, which is the executor, to make sure we live our life according to those messages. And then the little C1 who goes like, but what about my needs? And what about my feelings? And fingers up, and all sorts. You have to just bring a little TA in there. So when we're thinking about this little intrapsychic dynamic, this is what we are exploring today. I want to know what sits in there for you. What is this devil whispers for you in there? Yeah, as we go, I will have lots of examples to just enliven it and help you to think it through with me, and just dot it down for yourselves. If you want the slides, I don't need you to jiggle and write it all down. Drop me an email and I will send you the slides. My email address is on every single slide done with little letters, nia@niaclark.com. I will send you the whole track. Yeah? I purposely put images today which are not confidential, so I can even send you the images. So I like to think about two different ways when it comes to our intrapsychic dialogue in our inner critic. One of them is the neuro-informed lens, and the other one is the trauma-informed lens. The two is very intertwining, and we're working with them, weaving them together. But in order to be able to see clearly and talk to ourselves clearly and address things the appropriate way, probably not the best word, the effective way, that's the best word, because we want to make sure we can address our inner talk or our clients' inner talk the way how it will work, how it will become quieter. We want to shrink this little devil on the shoulder smaller. And then we want to develop a friend. Yeah. So the neuro-informed lens is about understanding how neurodiversity impacts ourselves. It will be about capacity questions. It will be about, can I access my brain? Can I actually physically, cognitively, emotionally do what I need to do? It will be about mechanism, whether the executive function is in place, whether the sensory load and the emotional load is in place. If I don't talk ADHD and I talk a little bit of autism, is my system overloaded from everything around me, all the things around me, and therefore I feel frozen and paralyzed? If I'm thinking about the inner criticism, what does it mean? The inner criticism from the neuro-informed lens means that something is missing, the support is missing. I didn't look into assuring my sensory balance. I didn't assure my emotional balance. I didn't assure that my executive functioning is okay. I didn't assure my neurotransmitters are working well. I didn't assure I have the right pacing today, what I need for my nervous system. Yeah, the meaning when the inner criticism is coming up and we feel crap about ourselves and we have the bad days, from the neuro-informed lens is a lot of neurodivergent kind of questions, not trauma-informed questions, and we move over in a minute. The aim with this is restoration. We want to make sure our executive functioning is in place. We want to make sure our sensory balance is there. We want to make sure our emotions from the 10 back to 0 or 1, which we can handle. We want to make sure the pacing and the environment is appropriate for us. We do have a cup of tea. We do have our quiet environment. We do have the space to think. And maybe today, this presentation is, I put quite a lot of content in it because it's psychoeducational. So just watch it again. I think it's recorded. They often upload it to the website. Just go through it again. You don't need to take everything in once today. I'm bringing a lot of different concepts because 53 people signed up to this workshop. So I want to make sure you all get a little snippets, something, a little slice of the cake, what you can take away and apply in your practice and to yourself today. And I'm aware it's quite a lot, and it will be very diverse. So the trauma-informed lens is what we normally probably do is about thinking about threat. It's thinking about safety. It's thinking about protection. It's thinking about shame and attachment and relational danger. Yeah, it's embedded in us. That's what our training was about. We learned about trauma-informed. TA is a trauma-informed kind of modality. And most of our TA schools are trauma-informed type of modality. So I'm hoping we can open up a neuro-informed TA school, besides of the classical, relational, and all of that, and establish the principles. So we give a chance to practitioners to understand the difference. How do I think first, and then can I move into the trauma-informed? Because if I don't settle down my dysregulation, I cannot go into the trauma. Settling down the dysregulation from the trauma and from the neurodiversity looks often same because the methodology is the same. Regulating breathing, calming down. With ADHD, you cannot really do mindfulness, but sometimes with autism, you can. With trauma, you can do a lot of mindfulness exercises, setting up sort of a healthy kind of lifestyle for the nervous system, and so on and so on. So there are lots of different steps in here. It looks the same, but where the dysregulation is coming from is very different. With trauma, it's coming from the past, where we brought a past event into the now, projected out to the future, and we feel unsafe. We feel unsafe about the future. We feel unsafe about the present. I need to make sure you feel safe. That's my direction when I'm dealing with trauma. When I'm dealing with neurodiversity, my question is your executive function okay? Are your neurotransmitters are in place? Did you take your vitamin D? Did you take your L-tyrosine? Did you increase your dopamine levels? Is your serotonin level okay? Because we're just coming out of a very dark winter and we all know our serotonin level is low. Did you take your 5-HTP? Yeah, we are not nutritionists, but for me, these are very standard questions. Have you had enough exercise? Did you have enough sleep? Because this will impact your nervous system. This will impact your wiring, everything in your environment, or the noise, or the light, or the talk, or the disruptions will irritate you, will dysregulate you, and your brain will not function. So we cannot start working in a therapy room and go into a trauma work until your regulation is okay and until I know you are fine. You had a busy day at the office and you're coming in and talking to me and your mind just cannot really focus on anything. let's calm this down. I often start sessions with 10 star jumps and big clapping and getting the energy out if I'm working with an ADHDer, because it's very hard for them to just sit in there and hold all that energy, all the frustration, all the things what's in them. And it's not necessarily emotional, it's their wiring. It was just too much input during the day. Yeah. So I want you to keep these two different hats on today. This is not a competition, what's right and wrong. We need both. We need the neuro-informed as well as the trauma-informed. We don't want to forget our training. Our training is correct and it was absolutely perfect. What changed when Bernd introduced the 3 TA principles, neuroscience was in tiny baby infancy steps. Yeah, it's growing now, and we have more and more coming out. So how we understand our brain, how we understand the nervous system is impacting on what all happened and have been designed in our modality originally. Yeah, so keep this in mind when you are reflecting on yourself. Which messages are coming from a neuro-informed lens? Which messages are coming from a trauma-informed lens? And how do I deal with it? In order to be able to accept myself, I'm just an idiot. I left my charger again at home. Rather than giving myself a super hard time, okay, that was my ADHD. I was stressed. I had little time. I needed to pack. I had 2 chargers, and I shouldn't have 2 chargers, because if I just have one, I'm sure I'm putting it in the bag. Done and dusted. Don't need to go further. So I can give myself a break because I understand that's my wiring. In our culture, in our films, in our magazines, in our songs, the trauma language is in. So our culture is surrounded. We have a generation who is overanalyzing everything and says, oh, you're a narcissist. Oh, you have this and you have that. Teenagers are talking about it and I'm going mad. Oh, just because you read a TikTok something or watched a TikTok something, suddenly you are able to diagnose someone with very serious kind of disorders. Yeah, so people are thinking about trauma nowadays all the time. Our narratives, our cultural narratives are framing as distress, lots of different events. And our articles, our Facebook messages, our social media, it's all over it. So just watch out. We start to separate this. Not everything is coming from a trauma kind of angle. When you're thinking about yourself, when you're thinking about your intrapsychic dialogue and your clients, bear this in mind. So let's think about, I'm only bringing 2 of these in, just today, the ADHD and autistic, because we don't have the time to spread it wider. But let's look into just 3 different principles. How do we think about the critical inner talk when ADHD versus autistic? So when someone has the capacity overload or the capacity versus overload pattern, speed versus safety tension, or failure versus exposure of fear. And I'm aware of the time, we're going to have a break in a minute. So the capacity versus overload pattern, with the thinking with the neuro-informed mind, the critical voice is often linked to fluctuating executive function. So the executive function sits in the frontal cortex. Quite often, the frontal cortex is underworking. It's not working fast enough. So the person cannot make decisions, cannot think, forgetful, doesn't remember things, cannot respond to things accurately, and so on. And the attack appears when the activation and the consistency and the follow-through drops. So the attack of the critical inner talk starts to come in. That little devil on the shoulder starts to talk because the consistency is lacking, because we missed something, because the follow-through didn't happen. Yeah, when I'm thinking about an ADHDer. So that will link into shame, but the reason is the executive function. With the autistic, again, neuro-informed, way of thinking, the critical voice is often linked to a sensory or social overload. So autistic people are coming with the issue, I had too much going on just going to the coffee shop. That's too much smell, that's too much light, that's too much noise. This blanket is horrible. I could scream. I could cringe inside. Yeah. So it appears when the environment changes and there is unpredictability, which overwhelms the system. So when I have someone coming with these issues, I'm looking for the neurodivergent patterns. I'm looking for going to the neurodivergent direction rather than going to what happened with you in the past. What's going with you in the now, and how can we think about this together? What's happening for you? How can we calm you down? So the defense principle will be that ADHD criticism center is inconsistent and not activating itself. Yeah. As we said, the consistency and the follow-through drops, that trust inside drops, the trust inside leaves the person. So the internal ADHD criticism kicks in. The autistic criticism center is related to the overwhelm of environmental mismatch, social or sensory. That's our direction. So let's see the next principle. When I'm looking at speed versus safety tension, yeah, the struggle is pacing, impulsivity, lots going on, lots of activities, lots of things happening for an ADHDer. There is constant urgency. We could call it hurry up. It's not hurry up from TA. This is an ADHD imbalance of the executive functioning. And lots of things are starting and not finishing at different times. The critic attacks and kicks in. I didn't finish. I'm too overwhelmed. I cannot think. I cannot move anywhere. The autistic, neuroinformed kind of question around this is the struggle with change, with the transitions, with the unpredictability. Because an ADHD can just switch from one place to another. There's no issue. It has lots of tabs open all the time. But for an autistic mind, one tab is open and it needs to be closed off. And then we need to open the other tab and then it needs to be closed off. And if you have too many tabs open, I could scream. I'm totally overwhelmed. I cannot deal with this. And you didn't tell me yesterday that third tab needs to be opened up. I cannot deal with it. I need preparation time for it. My brain is just not wired that way. So then the critic attacks around flexibility, around coping, around being too slow, around not being able to live life. So when we're thinking about the difference in principle, that the ADHD tension is about regulation and energy and direction. Regulation of energy, ups and downs. Yeah, good days, bad days, high energy, low energy. I can do lots of stuff. I cannot do anything. The autistic tension will be about regulation, about safety and predictability. You didn't tell me that. I wasn't expecting that. I cannot cope with this. It's too fast. It's too much. I cannot manage all of these tabs open. So look into yourselves. I'm again bringing it back to your writing exercise. Look into yourselves. How is it coming into your life? Yeah, we steer with the neuroinformed brain, with this neuroinformed lens, working with this. The next one will be a very well used trauma-informed lens when we're thinking about failure versus exposure or fear. Yeah, the ADHD trauma-informed lens, the critic often fears failure, disappointment, or being seen as incompetent or chaotic. Yeah, that's where we go with the trauma. That's where we go with the decisions. That's where we go with the beliefs. When we're thinking about the autistic, the autistic critic often fears the rejection. I've seen as too much or too awkward or too idiotic, and I'm socially wrong. I don't want to be seen by people. I want to hide. I want to be little. I don't want exposure because it's totally scary. And I feel my fears as I'm thinking about it. Yeah, ADHD is an inner threat, trying to avoid that I will fail because I know I cannot spin those many plates around. The autistic one, the inner threat is I will not belong. I will not be acceptable. I will not like. I will be not liked. Yeah, that's the trauma-informed, a deeper psychological work, what we are very comfortable with when we're thinking about this. But if the neurology is not settled, we cannot go there. So we need to regulate and help them and teach them to regulate first. We need to regulate ourselves first, and then we can go there. So how do we build up our friend with our counter dialogue to that little devil? Is important to consider these principles. So just a couple of little examples. The ADHD inner talk, I cannot get started, I must be lazy. I was motivated yesterday, why I cannot do it today? I know what to do, and why I'm not doing it? Why am I procrastinating? Why am I sitting on it? Everyone else is managing a normal life. Why I cannot? I mess things up because I cannot stay consistent. Why the autistic inner talk would be about very different things. Why is everything so overwhelming for me? I should be able to cope with this environment and I can't. Why am I so scared when I'm going out to just for a dinner or meeting friends or going to a conference? That's why I asked whether the size of the breakout room was okay for you, because maybe for some people, having 8 people or 9 people in a breakout room was too much. Not just the time, but feeling exposed. Oh, so many people are hearing me here. I don't really want to talk. Why do small changes throw me off so much? I'm too sensitive. I need too much structure. I should be probably more flexible. How do we thinking about when it's trauma informed? Yeah, we had the neuro informed before. So if I fail again, people will lose respect for me. Yeah, there is a decision in there. So I'm talking from experience. I have accumulated experience in there from the trauma. It's not just the here and the now responding to, oh, what's going on for me. I have to prove I'm capable. If I slow down, I'll be seen as incompetent. I can't let anyone see how chaotic I feel. If I disappoint them, they won't stay. If I don't mask, I won't be accepted for the autistic ones. I must not say the wrong thing. If I set boundaries, people will leave me. I'm too much for people. What I'm experiencing inside, they don't understand me, they misunderstand me. I'm too much. My emotional responses, my sensory responses are too much. I feel safer to stay quiet rather than risk being rejected. Yeah. So these are interesting kind of things. Again, I'm very happy to send you the slides. Just drop me a line if you want to have them. So I want you to write for yourselves, what is your general inner talk? Some of the inner talk will be around your capacity, will be around your procrastination, will be around being stuck in the moment, not from a post-trauma experience, but around your executive functioning is just not working. Too overwhelmed, too exhausted, too much is going on, too much sensory stimulation. So I cannot focus and cannot function. And it's nothing to do with what happened with me in the past in that moment. How I'm thinking about it might be a lot to do with what happened with me in the past and what kind of traumas and what kind of experiences have I been through from childhood. Yeah, I didn't bring too big emphasis on the trauma-informed lens today, because most of you know it. Most of you heard about it. What happened with me in school? How did the teachers misunderstood me and marked me? How my parents misunderstood me and marked me? How I was the most cryy child, how I was the most naughty child, how I was the most dreamy child who never listened, how I left all my stuff around, how I come from a very chaotic family, or how I come as an autistic person, come from a very disconnected, very quiet, never talking about feelings kind of family. Yeah, so we know most of the trauma-informed kind of lens and the trauma-informed kind of understanding about neurodiversity because it's out there. I wanted to bring you today a different lens, and we will go back to the trauma-informed because we're linking it together today. I wanted to bring you the neuro-informed because it's not out there. It's something we don't think about. It's something we don't speak about. It's something often we don't consider for ourselves or for our clients. Is your executive function in place? Is your brain and wiring and nervous system works all right? What's happening with your neurotransmitters? If you want to read more about the neurotransmitters, TJ Power has a lovely book out. It's only 5-6 quid, available on Amazon. It's called, it just popped out of my mind. I will look for it in a minute. Dose effect. It's called The Dose Effect. So if you want to read about neurotransmitters, he's a neuroscientist, a wonderful young man, talks a lot about the Z generation, why they are different and how can they settle into workplaces and so on. Talks about dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, and oxytocin, and makes us understand how important role they play in our life. And I'm finding it very useful for work. So I'm recommending that to colleagues, to clients, and so on. I always recommend a lot of books. Don't have to read them. I just love books. And I think people are super clever when they write them. So I wanted to bring this little diagram in here about imposter syndrome because it came up, the capacity. And some of these attributes might be ADHD kind of attributes, and some of them might be more autistic, might be in between. Yeah, so we might have the self-doubt about competence, as someone already said, which would lead to avoidance of growth opportunities. If I'm doubting myself, I will not take on an opportunity because I'm not sure if I can do that. Some of us might struggle with perfectionism. I'm not giving out of work until it's 100% perfect. I'm not doing anything until I feel 100% perfect, until I can run everything 100% perfect. This is a myth because that will never exist. As we are human, either ourselves or people around us will always mess something up. It has the emotional impact in a sense as I'm not good enough. I shouldn't be in this profession. I shouldn't do what I'm doing because it's not acceptable. And then we have the wonderful habit of comparing ourselves to others. But the other next door, or the other person who I just talked to or who I've seen on Facebook, look at them. They are all out there. They can speak so well. They can talk so well. What they are doing is amazing. And then I try to overcompensate for that, doing better, and I'm doing too much. And if I'm doing too much or I'm overcompensating, then I'm either stopping myself that I'm never getting there, or I'm spinning too many plates and then they are dropping. And then we might have a difficulty to accept the positive feedback. Anything what comes and is being positive, I just make myself smaller. I'm too big in there. So the difficulties, then it creates difficulty in seeking support. If I'm not able to accept positive feedback, if I'm not able to trust another, they genuinely like me, they genuinely appreciate me, then I will not seek support. I pull the curtain in a little bit because we have sun. That's very rare in here, but we have sun. There we go. Better. Yeah, so what I would like you to do, and I promise I will put not more than 3-4 people this time, so you have enough time. We do a 7-minute one, so then we can still carry on with all of the different things what we want to do. So let's pop into a breakout room and talk about your experience. So if I can go back to the diagram. One of them is how is your inner critique sort of feeding and impacting your professional life. Therefore, you might pop into one of the parts of this diagram and what are you taking away from this imposter syndrome diagram? How was the breakout room for everyone? Was it a smaller size, more comfortable? Anyone wants to share anything?
Short and sweet.
Okay.
Short and sweet.
Thank you. Anyone wants to share anything?
Yeah, I'd like to share, if that's all right. Yes, it was a lovely, nice, small group, so short and sweet, like somebody said already. I think for me, the reason I came into this workshop was something very different to what I'm going to be taking away. I'm learning so much about myself and the things about the imposter syndrome. I'm learning about perfectionism and how I compare myself with other therapists, and I'm not good enough, and all sorts of things I'm kind of taking away. So I haven't been diagnosed or formally diagnosed for ADHD or any neurodivergency. I've sort of thought myself as being neurotypical, but I'm now taking away from your presentation that there are parts of me that can actually come into the ADHD part side. I don't know. I mean, I've never thought about it that way. So it's opened my eyes about myself.
Look into it. Thank you for this feedback. Look into it. We might just have traits, and we might not be full on neurodivergent, but we might have traits of autism. We might have traits of ADHD. We might have traits of dyslexia. We might have traits of dyspraxia. So it's worth to look into a little bit about things. I didn't bring the symptoms of ADHD or autism today in here because we have been talking about this for a long time. So what is ADHD, what is autism is out there for about 10 years. But how do we manage it within ourselves and how do we manage it with our clients is not. So that's why we are talking about rather what is our attitude, what are the principles around this, what is the management around this. We don't know. And that's why my workshops are usually tailored towards the principles and the process of managing neurodiversity. But I'm absolutely happy to respond to any questions, and I'll leave some questions for the end. Thank you very much again. Anyone else?
I can say, do you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you well.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I can say for me it was really useful, this diagram, because I realized I am diagnosed with ADHD, and I know I have autistic traits, and I realized, and that was good, that I don't have all of them, and that's nice. That was my insight, let's say like that. I don't have all of that. I don't have difficulty seeking support, for example. I don't have that, and I was like, oh gosh, that's good. So thank you for that. Thank you for that saying. That's nice.
Thank you for the feedback. Anyone else?
Yeah. Can I ask a question regarding neurodiversity and I know we've talked about the ADHD and the autism and, neurodiversity generally. Is there any research done whether it's genetic as well?
It's genetic. It's mostly genetic. So neurodiversity is not developed from trauma. If you look into neurodivergent families, most of the families down the family line will have neurodiversity. How it develops and how much is impacting someone's life has a lot to do with their upbringing. So that's where the trauma might comes into the place. Like Gabor Mate has a lot of work around this. But if people didn't read Dr. Amen's work when he talks about the 7 different types of ADHD, is a little bit contradictory. So we have lots of other research, and Dr. Amen researched over 1,000 people. He's a medic, he did brain scans and so, and therefore diagnosed 7 different types of ADHD. And he's taking to account the family background, the social background, the medical background, and the lifestyle as well, and trauma as well. So all the 4 quadrants are covered by him. So I don't believe neurodiversity is developed as a result of trauma, because I have lots of neurodivergent clients who never really had trauma in their life. They just have neurodiversity. They're just severely autistic, or they're just severely ADHD. And they had a lovely upbringing, very caring family, very nice family, and no trauma at all. But the coping with life is very difficult for them. So that's what's causing the issue. That's what's causing then turns into a trauma, which is not a PTSD kind of trauma. It builds into the person through beliefs and coping mechanisms in life. So that's why we are separating this in here. And I believe it's very much genetic. So if we're thinking about the caveman way back, we're thinking about a person who has inattentive ADHD, very quiet, very dreamy, just being in the space. They probably used to be responsible for looking at where the wind is coming from, smelling everything in the air, really not keeping in touch with anyone else around them, hearing whether something is walking on the leaves around, smelling the animals, and just being there and watching and looking what's happening, what's going on, walking, being active in the meantime. So they had all their senses available all the time, and activity with their body. Once they recognized something is coming, gave the signal to those ones who had the hyperactive ADHD, and they were able to just switch on things and then run like crazy to catch the mammoth so everyone can eat. In the meantime, all the autistic type of people remembered every single leaf, every single berry, every single animal, every single butterfly, because they have such an incredible analytical memory that can store all of this. So these things were necessary while we didn't have all this technology, what we're sitting on 8, 10, 12 hours a day, and the person doesn't need to smell anything anymore, doesn't need to identify the wind, doesn't even know whether the sun is up or down. They don't need to know all the berries, and definitely don't need to catch the mammoth. Yeah. So these things were in us, and because the technology develops so much faster than our evolution, our brain is just stuck. We cannot sit 8 hours and 10 hours and 12 hours in front of a computer with an ADHD wiring. It drives us nuts. Yeah. So it's I don't think it's trauma. We are just different. Our brain is like my fingerprint. Different parts of the brain are different sizes. And if different parts of the brain are different sizes, they will respond to life in a different way. And then some of them we call ADHD, some of them we call autism. And in our current setup, in our socialized and technological life, it might cause trouble. If it would be a different type of life, it wouldn't be. Let's move on, because I still have some bits and pieces I promised you in my description. So I don't want to let you down.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I don't know if someone had the question. Please leave it to the end. I will leave a couple of minutes, and then you will be able to ask those questions as well. So that's where we get to the point to please develop this new lovely friend. The devil shrunk, and we have a good size of new friend who can whisper in our ear. Whisper the new neuro-informed knowledge and understanding, how we think about ourselves or how we teach our clients to think about themselves. Yeah? We want to create that friend. So we want to write about this friend now. When we're looking into the pyramid, then right now we will be talking about a little bit mentioning the sensory balance, a little bit mentioning the beliefs about the self and the others and the world. I'm leaving the emotional intelligence out today because we won't really have too much time. I don't deal with the emotional overload as much. I use DBT techniques. We don't have too much time. I would love to. But we look into procrastination and motivation, definitely, and working with shame and masking. Yeah. So I just popped up. This is from the new book, 2 pages. How I developed the sensory economy chart. How can we track either our own sensory responses or the client's sensory responses? For example, if I'm taking the visual and someone is hypersensitive, maybe someone hates the Christmas flashing lights. They hate the white lights. I set up all yellow lights, dim lights in my clinic so people can have a sensory rest when they come in. They might don't like really bright neon colors, and they might don't like very strong sunshine, but they might need patterns. So I have some plain cushions and some really pattern cushions in the clinic, black and white, zebra stripe, and all sorts, because they need some patterns in their life. They don't want everything blend. So they have a little bit of craving, hypersensitivity, and they have a big chunk of hypersensitivity to other things. With all of the senses, we can map these things out when we understand what is the hypersensitivity and what is the hyposensitivity. And then once we understand these, then we learn about how can we manage them, what can we offer to our clients so they can manage their hypersensitivity and hypersensitivity and build a very useful and very balanced kind of environment for themselves. The similar thing happens with when we're thinking about, I'm always using Erskine's, I didn't put it up, but probably most of you know Erskine's script system, or if we call it in the old way, rocket system, when he maps up beliefs about the selves, others, and the world. If I'm thinking about this with the neuro-informed lens, what do I think about myself as a neurodivergent person? What do I believe others think about me as a neurodivergent person, autistic, ADHD, whatever I think about? Or what society thinks about me as a neurodivergent person? What are the beliefs in there? How do they sit in there? Breaking this down for yourselves, breaking this down for your clients. And then when you're thinking about these beliefs, what will be the new developed counteractive new belief? Because we cannot just stop believing in something and not giving something new in there. We need to make sure we give a new belief, something what we deeply agree with. And the deep agreement doesn't come just from a decision on the spot. The deep agreement is coming from psychoeducation, from understanding and experience together. If I'm experiencing myself being completely disoriented and dysregulated, imagine yourself middle of a traffic, everyone is beeping, and your senses are just going totally crazy. You've forgotten where are you driving. You don't know where you're turning right or left. How do I calm myself? That's not trauma. That's dysregulation in the moment. Do I start to breathe? Do I start to sing? Do I put on the sat nav? What do I need to settle my mind and get my mind back to the level where I can think again, where I can make the decisions again on that spot in the moment. If the trauma comes in, it's because previously I had an accident, and in that moment that accident flashes back, then that becomes trauma. Yeah. So how do I deal with this separately? If the trauma comes in, then I need to deal with the PTSD type of methodologies. How do I calm down my trauma response in the moment? But it's not always trauma. So don't go into the trauma route straight away. Investigate and have an open mind, a completely wide canvas, what's happening with the neurology in the moment. So I promise we will be talking about procrastination. I created this procrastination hexagon, which is much more simple than the previous one. We don't need to work in pairs. We can work individually with all of the 6 layers or 6 groups. If I'm thinking about someone has a root cause from a perfectionistic angle, and that's the reason why they procrastinate. They procrastinate because they don't think what they are doing or what they created is perfect yet. My daughter is a singer. If she doesn't think her vocal cord is developed and her technique is developed to the song, and she can belt with the song, she would not sing. I always invite her to come along with me to conferences and sing a beautiful song, and our colleagues are welcoming her absolutely nicely. And I just had a song in mind, which is an absolutely wonderful song, but she said she's not fully prepared to sing it on the national conference because she doesn't think she can have that power with her voice just yet. She might be able to sing it quietly, but the song is very powerful and she wants to bring that power in there to give the meaning to the song. She doesn't think she's good enough. And I'm still nudging her, but I don't want to nudge her too much because I don't want to turn her completely off. So we are in discussion, and I hope I'm not running out of time because the conference is at the end of April. Yeah. So that's a kind of procrastination, not stepping out to the light because I'm not perfect. Avoidant fear-based procrastination, I'm afraid I would fail. I'm afraid I'm not good enough. I'm afraid it's not the perfectionistic bit. I'm afraid I don't have enough experience. I'm afraid I don't know the way. That's a very different type of procrastination when the person needs to figure out what are the steps, how can they do something. So they're not putting it aside. They are able to actually start with the first step. Decisional procrastination, I jumped back to the top, is a type of procrastination when the person cannot make a decision, and any kind of sometimes simple decisions are overwhelming. Do I want to have peas or do I want to have carrots? Do I want to wear the red t-shirt or do I want to have the blue t-shirt? Do I want to go out tonight or do I not want to go out tonight? Do I want to go to Spain or do I want to go to France? And some people have quite major issues with the decisional procrastination because I don't know if I want to take a job and stay in this country, or I want to move out of the country and not take a job and just live a hippie life. I'm not sure. I don't know if I want to dedicate myself to a family or I don't want a child at all. Yes, sometimes these are very difficult decisions that people don't make them because they are afraid, what would I lose out on if I'm deciding this way or if I'm deciding that way? Working with these kind of decision patterns are very different. The reward stimulation seeking it's based on dopamine seeking, when the person would rather choose something much more fun, much more happy, much more relaxing, much better than actually deal with the responsibilities, duties. I rather watch television. I rather go out. I rather get drunk. I rather spend my money on nice clothes than pay my bills, whatever that is. Yeah, so we have all impulsivity and different bits coming in here. The defiant autonomy is a funny one. It's not coming from necessarily rebellious child. Yeah, it's not coming necessarily from the try-hard driver. But if someone is saying to me to do something and it interferes with my value system, I will not like it. Or sometimes I just don't like it because I already had it in mind, but you said it so, and now it put me off. Yeah, we have a lot of demand avoidance in there. And I was just exploring and researching demand avoidance today. What is rebellion and what is actually demand avoidance? I'm not going into it. It's another hour topic. But with the defiant autonomy, the person doesn't like that someone is in power and then putting them down in that power, using their power to direct them, to instruct them, to manage them. They want to be independent and they want to manage themselves. So they don't do what they should do because there was a power where they felt they are upset. We have a Generation Z, which has a lot of this going on. Yeah. And then the energy and executive functioning procrastination, simply the person run out of energy. They just can't. They just cannot make decisions. They just cannot get up from the couch. They just cannot brush their teeth because there is no energy available. So for me, when I'm coming to this, there is always question of neurotransmitters, lifestyle, and so on. Before I go to masking, I think I want to show you something else in there. Just need to see which one I wanted to show you. Yeah, probably just this one. So bear with me for a quick second. So I'm able to share that before we're talking about masking and shame. There we go. Because we had some questions about this, so I want to make sure. We go to that one as well. I need to flick it through because if I'm sharing the screen this way, I cannot just click on the, okay. So when I'm looking into life struggles, executive functioning struggles, I'm usually breaking it down to internal organizational and external organizational struggles. These struggles are quite valid for autistic as well as ADHD individuals. They struggle with different type of things. Most of the struggles will be around, if I'm thinking about some of the internal ones, about time, about planning, about prioritization, about goal setting, diary, finance management, problem solving, decision making, memory, or categorization. Yeah, so these are sitting all in the internal organization system. When we're thinking about the external organization system, is how do I store my socks? Where do I put my t-shirts? Can I find a can of beans in the cupboard or everything just shoved in? Do I know where my cutlery is? How organized my files are on the computer? If I want to look into a file or into something, can I find that very easily? So quite often the work, when I'm working with someone who is neurodivergent, or when I'm working with myself, if I don't sort this out for myself, the internal and external organizational systems, then my house looks like a tip. Then I cannot find things. That will be utterly totally disturbing for myself. So having that nice process in life when I'm sorting out mine and able to support a client with this to sort out themselves. And if I failed in one of those, then my little new friend will be able to explain it to me. That's your internal organization issue. That's your external organizational issue. I don't give a hard time, but I can plan, okay, so that bit is not sorted. I need to figure out a solution for that. Rather than go down the basement, my whole life is utterly crap. 9 minutes and it's lunchtime. I take another 3 and then we can have some questions. So when we're thinking about masking, I think about different types of masking. Yeah, I put 7 different types of masking in the books: social type of masking, cognitive masking, sensory masking, intellectual masking, professional masking, academic masking, and camouflage, when the person completely denies themselves and then just try to make sure they give up themselves and try to make sure they completely fit in life. So when I'm working with masking, I'm very interested in how the person masks, and just fitting within the social system doesn't mean it's masking. If it's decisional, it's not coming from a fearful place, and the person wants to fit in, that's not necessarily masking. Quite often people mixing this, and they're not able, definitely when I'm talking to the younger generation, for them everything is masking. Not everything is masking. We do need to be aware of our environment and our social conditioning. I'm coming from a different culture. We are very loud. We gesticulate. We express anger. We can be angry, even in public. No one would think bad about you if you are. In the UK, I tried it. It didn't go well. Yeah, this is not a nation where I can do that. I had to change. This is not masking. I'm not feeling repressed or oppressed. But I realize if I want to be part of this society, I cannot fully be my original Hungarian national being, because it's a different nation. But if I'm being British in there, that looks weird as well. So sort of need to hold both. I'm living here for about 21 years. It's a long, long time. And I want to be part of this society. I'm accepting it and I'm embracing it. It doesn't mean I'm giving up myself. Probably most of you are familiar with the shame loop when we're thinking about shame from Ray Little. Yeah, it's when we're talking about masking, we're also talking about shame because we're holding shame. We're holding shame from all of these very critical messages. The client who we're working with holding shame from all of these very critical messages. So I'm wondering there, when how do we, it doesn't need to take 2 people. We can shame ourselves with our critical message. How do we shame ourselves with our critical message? With this little devil on our shoulder, carrying on with all the negative, critical, toxic thinking. How the new friend will stop this? How the new friend will advocate for us and say, no, this is just neurodiversity. You might have an off day. Your nervous system might be tired because you pushed it too much. So let's just settle down, understand what you need today, and then you pick it up in a day or 2. It will be all right. Oh, I left something again. That's all right. You have been stressed in the morning. You have been working too much, or I run out of energy, whatever that is. So how do we develop this new friend to understand ourselves, to talk to ourselves, to have a voice from this newly informed point of view? And we got to question time. We have a good, I popped in the shame compass as well, because I find it really, really informative and useful. Whether the person is coming from the point of, if they experience shame, do they attack themselves? Do they withdraw? Do they avoid or attack another? Yeah, it's a lovely model. It's adopted from Nathanson and identified by Allison. So if we move on to the end, first of all, thank you very much for being here. I hope you got what you came for. But please ask me questions. We still have a good 4 minutes before you can have your well-deserved lunch today. Tell me what else I didn't talk about, or what kind of questions do you have? It's a big topic, and I'm here to answer your questions if I can. I don't know everything, for sure.
Hi, can I ask you, please, about the different forms of masking? I found that really interesting, and I hadn't thought about different ways of masking before. Thank you.
So if we pop back in there, social masking is probably the most often used kind of category when people are masking socially. The cognitive masking is when someone cognitively doesn't have the capacity, but they pretend they do. And it can happen at work, it can happen in academic environment, it can happen just in a simple social talk. Sensory masking is when people have sensory overload, but they pretend they are not distressed by it, and they try to go along with it. Intellectual masking is when someone is actually very clever and they know a lot, but if they act as it is and they talk as it is, people will feel inferior around them. So they need to downsize themselves and then not appear as intelligent as they are actually are. Professional masking, in the profession, when we have struggles, we are not able to talk to our line manager, or we are not able to talk to our colleague or our supervisor or our mentor about it, because we are afraid we will be judged by them. So we pretend everything is all right. Academic masking is around academic struggles, essay writing, reading academic articles, memorizing certain things, making sense of certain things. When it comes to difficulties and people don't talk about it, then it can cause struggle. The camouflage is when someone gives up themselves, their identity, and they move into whichever group they are to blend in. I hope that helps in a nutshell.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you so much. That's really interesting and helpful. Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions?
Could I ask a question, please? But we probably don't have enough time to answer it. But
we have 2 more minutes.
If procrastination is a result of neurological or the executive functioning is limiting your ability to deal with it, how do we work with clients who are procrastinating if it's not sort of from small trauma about the messages they've received, but a neurological thing? How do we deal with that procrastination?
So with the procrastination, if it's coming from a neurological point of view, and definitely from the executive functioning point of view, we need to go through the treatment plan. So we need to figure out what's happening in their sensory economy. When do they have experienced sensory overwhelm? I want to know what's happening with their beliefs around their neurology and their neurodiversity. I want to understand their emotional intelligence, how they are aware of themselves, about social situations, and how they deal with relationship situations. I want to understand how they manage their emotional overload and support them with that. Then go into the everyday struggles, the executive functioning struggles, where we manage the internal or external organizational problems and figure out which one is a problem, which one is not, finding resolution for them. And within the procrastination, if it's coming from executive function, building all of these pillars up like a scaffolding, holding the person, they will be able to break out of procrastination, because once we attack the internal organizational issues, which quite often is the problem for one, some of them is lifestyle, metabolism, some of them is the internal organizational issues, then they are able to build different entries out of this type of procrastination, which is coming from the executive functioning, the low dopamine levels. So it's quite a complex problem. It's not like a one session solution. Sure. The person needs to build up a neurodivergent lifestyle to be able to manage their neurodivergent brain.
Okay.
Yeah. If they have a neurotypical lifestyle with a neurodivergent brain, they will be struggling. And we need to be able to support them with this. Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
We are up to our time. Yeah. I want to release you all for having a lovely lunch. Thank you very much for being here today. If you want to connect, then you can find me on Nia Clark ADHD Coaching. You can follow me there, or just link with me on Facebook by Nia Clark, or on LinkedIn, or just drop me an email and I will get back to you, nia@niaclark.com. If you want the slides, just send me this, and I hope I will see some of you on other conferences or working together. Thank you very much.